Hey, so I know it's like right afterwards and I've cleaned up and I'm bright-eyed. And I look it I don't look as horrible. I don't know, it could still look like horrible, but so I actually did want to actually, if you guys are gonna follow, I don't know, I'm doing this for basically friends and stuff. Um, but I wanted to talk about what is a dragon slash serpent. And I kind of wanted to just actually talk about the history a little bit. So, like I said, dragon, so the word dragon actually comes from the word Draco, which is Greek in origin, which, so basically it actually means just great serpent. And so a lot of people, when they think of dragons, we think of the huge, like European scale dragon that has wings and claws and stuff like that. And that wasn't actually originally what a dragon was. Um, it is said that all around the world, you're going to find a dragon like creature. So that is absolutely true, and there is a reason for that, and that's because snakes. You're gonna find snakes all over the world. You're gonna find dragons all over the world too, because really what a dragon is just a snake, and sometimes bird, sometimes we got little camel going on if you're talking about, say, Asian dragon. So we've got to be kind of like, how did this happen? So what is a dragon? Because we see dragons in pretty much all mythology all over the world. So what a dragon originated as is back in that Greek area. And this is just where the word came from because, like I said, there's snakes all over the world. So we have classical in Greek mythology, which is like the Hydra, um, and the basilisk and everything like that. So pretty much what Draco just meant was a monster snake, and other snakes were called something else. But so when we call like a Draco, we're thinking about a huge snake of mythical proportions. And it is or was kind of seen as evil in Greek and not necessarily as well, but the Greeks hate their snakes, and a lot of other cultures really liked them. Um, it's it was okay, so this is getting kind of weird and technical. A lot of times, neighboring things from the Greek. So, I'm forgetting the names right now, but you can look it up. Actually, we're very, very high in Serpent. You know, actually, when they went over to Rome, they took over a lot of I want to say tribes, civilizations. I'm way too native for my own good. Um, that actually worshipped a lot more snakes. So the great and horrible thing about Romanism, which did spread to Christianity, just saying, is that they started this thing where they started to demonize the gods and goddesses instead of adding on to it. So a lot of cultures, when we took them over, we took the gods and goddesses and they said, hey, they work for us. Rome and Greek, when they took some over, they took the ones that applied to them and everyone else as monsters. And a huge, in that area and other areas too around the world, snakes are a huge symbolism of power because whoever controlled the snakes could heal and destroy. And you're going to hear that a lot, and it's called chaos. So, chaos is defined by everything and nothing at the same time in the magical community. Void is the opposite. I don't deal with void, I know about void, but I deal a lot with chaos, and I'm a huge Tiamat follower. Um, I know that sounds weird. You're native and you follow Tiamat. Why? Because as a native, we let things come to us. We do not go searching for things. We let them come to us. That is how we work. I have never known, now I'm like being an open-minded, I have never known a native who has actively sought out something. I've more known them for be like, hey, okay, so Aphrodite just came for me. Now I gotta go do a whole bunch of Greek research. Um, so this is other paganisms as well, but it's more prominent, I want to say, in our community. I'm not too sure, to be quite honest. I know a lot of Astradu and a lot of Hellenistic who said we actively sought out this path. I have never known, maybe it's just like the people I hang out with, but I've never really known that many Native Americans to be like, hey, I'm gonna study this because I like it. So no, actually, Tiamat was one of the first goddesses who ever came to me, and she's stayed pretty solidly since. Others have come and gone. For me, I know a lot about Norse mythology, I know a lot about Greek mythology, and I know some Kemetic, not too much, but I do know some Kemetic. Um, I know Native American, obviously. So yeah, so when we're talking about dragons and serpents, really we're just talking about serpents. And so anything that can apply to serpents can apply to dragons as well. Um, but what happened, because, Greek and then went to Rome, and Rome started to conquer. And when things conquer, ideas mixes. So when we were going, say the Romans were going up to, Asia. Asian ideas came back to Rome, so they started to add a little bit more, and then Asia started to add a little bit more because they had their own thing. And then Rome went to Britain, and Britain had their own. They had the worms or the worms, or however you're gonna pronounce it. I've heard it different ways. And so they took the scales from where they are, and they took, some stuff from I think they took the legs, not too sure. Remember, it's all lost information, really. But they took, wings from the birds and stuff like that, and eventually, so the European dragon is scales of a snake, face of a snake, wings of a bird or bat, depending, by the way. And then we're gonna add some claws of lions. So yes, it is cat. So, um, and if you have snakes, which I actually own snakes, I've dealt with snakes, this really makes sense that dragons are actually another cat as well. So that's how we got the classic dragon, and that's basically the history behind it, give or take. We're gonna see in Mesoamerica, um, you're gonna see the serpent. I don't want to say it wrong, to be quite honest. I'm not Mesoamerican. I'm Native American. Um, so uh, so we're talking about the serpent with the I love that I can't do this. Bird wings, so rainbow. Rainbows are a huge thing in dragons, and a lot of people don't realize that. Because we have the rainbow serpent, which we see from Mesoamerica to Australia. So there's a lot of different things. Sometimes they don't classify it as dragon, but when we go back to the roots and we realize that Draco just means snake, then we can say, okay, so they're all technically the same thing. Except for there's two classifications. And I don't understand this quite myself, where the line is drawn on so-called evil and so-called good snakes, dragons, serpents, whatever you're gonna call them. Um, we can date this back. The biggest example I can think of the top of my head when it comes to, hey, there's a good snake and there's a bad snake, is Egyptian. Because they had both in the same culture, and it's interesting because we had Wadjet, who was the cobra, Cobras are usually good, actually, which you wouldn't think about. But if we look at it in, so like in Asia and in India, I separate the two when I'm talking about mythology. I know there's other political and country stuff going on that, but when we're talking about mythology, I do separate it. So with with India, we see a lot of the cobra, and usually cobras are good. I don't want to say exact because it's a big world. And so when we look at the Egyptians, we see there's Wajet, and then we see the huge chaos serpent who's taking down Ra, and Ra taking down him, depending. Not too sure, but Ra usually wins. Um, and so he destroys the serpent, and then we're saved from chaos. Um, Chaos is the only term I can actually use for it. Because we really just don't have a name for good chaos anymore. This is one of the sad parts that we have just lost. When we talk about Tiamat, we call her, chaos, and it's usually in a kind of negative way, which is weird because she's a creation goddess. And I think, in my personal opinion, with working with people in the community, it's because she's scary. She's a dragon. And she's not nice all the time. She's vengeful and she's very, very bitey. And that's normal. For most gods and goddesses, um, but I think a lot of people take it in their interpretation and not in the myths, and they pick and choose, which is okay. Whatever speaks to you speaks to you. In especially in my culture and other cultures, the myths are there because they're lessons, and stories are lessons. They're entertainment to teach you morals. And so this is very, very big in my culture, other cultures too, that you don't really go by the mythology. The mythology is kind of a code of context that you understand what is right and wrong in this world. Loose terms, but it's valid. So in Babylon, we have chaos, which is Tiamat. And in the Egyptians, we have this negative chaos or destruction or out of order. The Egyptians loved their order, so anything out of order is going to be seen as chaos, destruction. Um, we don't have a positive word for chaos other than, in my personal opinion, life. Um, and that's going to be a lot of loose terminology, um, but there is good chaos. We sometimes call her Lady Luck. Sometimes we call her Fortuna. This is chaos because where there is a high, there is a low. So if we're gonna say complete destruction, your life is ruined, absolutely, then we're talking about, say, that huge serpent, that the Egyptians, I'm forgetting the name of that. It's like, I should know it, to be quite honest. But I don't, and with, okay, so I'm gonna attempt it. I know I'm gonna say it wrong. Quetzalcoatl, and somebody's gonna yell at me for that. It's okay. I have auto processing disorder. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do have a speech disorder. And so sometimes other languages just don't mix with me. I've got like two languages, and that's where I'm staying because our languages are so much different. Um, and everyone's like, oh no, if you know like English, you know Spanish. And I'm like, which version of Spanish? I don't know. It's all Latin based apparently, and my brain just goes nope. Um, so you gotta forgive me because this is just kind of like I'm winging this video. But I know so much about it that I can just wing it. So you're gonna have to forgive me on names. Um, so with you guys are gonna yell at me, Quetzalcoatl, um, and other positive. So we're seeing Quetzalcoatl, we're seeing Wajat, who is these positive snakes. Cobras are seen as protectors, sometimes those luck bringers if you're talking about Nagas. Not lamprey, but Nagas. I'm not sure if I said that right either. You guys are gonna have to really forgive me on these names. Again, speech disorder, so you're gonna have to be very patient with me. Um, but Nagas, huge luck. Huge luck, protection, prosperity. And we're talking about serpents again. And so it's kind of like this weird duality. I'm wearing my shirt, eclipses, blood moons, all kinds of that kind of energy. Ooh, I'm feeling that ringing. Like, oh, you said something good. Um, that's how I usually, hear it. It's like, it's not really a hearing. I actually have to put it out there. I've never known actually somebody to actually hear. It's a lot of times when people say hear, they mean they can feel it. So you can, oops, I'm doing that serpent thing. Um, so you kind of feel it right here. You feel it go up your throat. You feel it in that third eye. Um, I call it my reptilian eye. Um, so it's kind of that I just have a feeling that this is what they're saying. And like it's sometimes like a pounding, but not really. It's just something that goes into the heart and you just kind of feel it and you understand it. And sometimes you just have a feeling of where it's coming from. So it's kind of weird. But a lot of, I think, psychics and a lot of clairvoyants and mediums will tell you kind of the same thing. Not too sure. It's not a voice. It's not like we hear voices. It's just really a feeling. Makes sense? I'm covering a lot of topics, but all of it is pretty valid. Because when we're talking about working with serpents, remember, serpents don't have ears. We just hear vibrations. That is a huge thing. It's about gut feeling. It's about the very primal feeling in yourself. And at the same time, understanding that that primal, low to the ground feeling that you're getting is actually higher knowledge. I hear a lot of people talk about ascending and going up into the air and everything like that, and they kind of forget that there's holiness on the ground. And so I've had a lot of kind of interesting conversations with people about rising, and I'm like, that is so Western thinking. And not even Western, because we were here first. Sorry, that was bitter, but again, valid, because it really was um, Christianity and other Judaism and such like that talks about rising. Sometimes in Hinduism, I hear it kind of in Buddhism. But now in the New Age community, we're talking about higher vibrations, higher. And people forget about those lower vibrations. And I have been very fortunate to be able to be grown up in a community that recognizes those lower vibrations. And people are like, wait a minute, so you give in to hate and everything in your primal way, and yes, the primal way of thinking, because your primal sense is more connected sometimes than your higher sense. Think about chakras. Okay? So think about, hey, higher. So what are you thinking with? You're thinking with your head. You're thinking with your eyes. And people are like, they don't think about that a lot of times. They think, oh, the throat, the truth, the absorbing from the higher, and they don't realize, hey, what what is this? What is this crown on? What is this? Their eyes. Their eyes. And go back to philosophy. Only a blind man can see. Open your mind, which doesn't mean just what's above, but below too. That's a wonderful druid saying, as above as below. And that is the core of serpent energy, dragon energy. Earth. Who would have thought? Earth energy can be just as sacred as up in the clouds. And that's why they say to properly do magic. Ground. Because we are living in this world. And that doesn't mean we're here for a punishment. We're here to heal. Mother is here to heal us. That is sacred. Why do you not think that this is sacred? Why do you have to rise to find sacredness or different dimensions or something like that? We are here. This is sacred. This is our world. We can't be looking at other dimensions before we heal this one. But we can take lessons from the other dimensions to heal this one. And this rising stuff, if you're going to work with serpents, dragons, actually any kind of spirits, nature spirits, that everyone seems to love to work with. And then we talk about rising. You're not going to get any help from any nature spirits if you're talking about that. Okay? This is just my knowledge, and there's going to be people who are going to take or not take my knowledge. But I grew up in this community. I grew up before New Age got popular. It was always there. But before it got popular, my family were doing native stuff and dealing with magic before, you guys could even be thought of. Before fate even decided to put your string into play. So you can't argue with this, and you could not argue, but I'm telling you from my experiences, from my family's experiences, from my community's experiences, nature is not going to work for you if you don't honor it. So if you're talking about going into other realms, if you're talking about going into the Summerlands, High, in Van Hollen, nature spirits are not going to really work with you because you have to honor them. Those are not realms that you are honoring them. So if you're going to work with something else, be my guest. But if you're going to start working with Fae, you're going to start working with dragons, you're going to start working with this primal energy that is this world that we are all connected by in this realm, then you're not going to get any support. And if you are drawn to serpents, I would not seek out a serpent. I would be drawn to them. So people are like, how are you drawn to serpents? You can't look away. Everywhere you go, there's somewhere. When I'm growing up, I would go to walks and I would find a snake. I would find a rattlesnake. No matter what I did, I would find it. There was actually one time that I was with a sibling, and we were walking up a path, and they were looking in the sky and everything like that, and wow, it's beautiful. And I was actually looking down to the ground, and I was looking at the ground, and my sibling actually almost stepped on a gopher snake, and there was no way. And this gopher snake was like chilling, you know what I mean? He was like spread out. He was feeling great, and we were so low vibrations walking, and we weren't shuffling, that this guy just was like, meh. I don't feel in danger. And I had to stop my sibling from stepping on this gopher snake. And my sibling looked at it and was like, is it dead? And I was like looking at him like, nah, it's not dead, dude. And I just kind of like, warning right here, don't do this. Like, even if, don't actively go and touch a wild animal. In this case, I've been working with reptiles for a long time, and I do a lot of biology stuff. So, I kind of scooted him along. I didn't pick him up. I don't pick them up, even whatever. I have a really big thing about picking up. I mean, I'm totally guilty as a kid going and catching lizards and stuff like that, but I don't like picking them up. I tell kids, even though I grew up there like that, don't pick them up. Just admire them. Don't touch them. How would you feel if a stranger came and started touching and picking you up? You're gonna bite them. So, you know, snakes are gonna bite you. And lizards and everything else that's not used to being handled. So, like I said, I scooted along, and sure enough, you know, she looked at me, then I looked at her, and cuckoo, toodles. So it went, which is a lesson within itself. Talk about full circle. I talk about full circle a lot. So I'm gonna say that full circle usually means I gotta wrap things up, and I'm almost actually right at 30 minutes, believe it or not. So with the full circle is, hey, sometimes we look high to the skies, that we don't remember the ground, and this is so classic of people nowadays. We're always looking for the bigger, the better, and we're thinking the more we rise to the top, the more we smush our egos down, which we call our primal sense. What we forget is sometimes there's something called a high horse for a reason, and that we do need to connect to that earth energy. And sometimes for people, that's the serpent energy. And to work with something, you need to know the history of it. So I'm glad I can give you just a snippet of the history. There is a lot. There is a ton of history. And like I said, I've got that auto processing thing going on. I know I get yelled at it all the time because of it. So I'm going to say some of the names, and some of the names I'm just going to be like, go look it up. So definitely that the chaos serpent starts with an A, I'm pretty sure. And Egyptian, I know Wadjet, Wadjet, say and Quetzalcoatl. I know it's like the Q is like sort of silent or something. There's a right way to say that and a wrong way to say that, and everyone usually says it wrong. So I would ask someone how to say it, and stuff like that. So I mean, that's what serpent energy is. Remember, Earth is your history. It's where your bones are, and so that's where your ancestors are. And if you're gonna work with the nature, you have to actually work with the nature and honor it. So none of this talking about getting out of this world, work within it, not around it. Um, so that's about it. Again, I'm Griffin. And if you like this channel, then you'll like it. And if you don't, it's for personal whatever reasons anyway, because I was asked to do it. So, yay! Sorry for the poor quality. It's just how this camera is. I'm using a shitty camera, you know. So, yeah.